Okay, let's continue talking about factoring. I'll leave you to do number 12. You can either test it with, or not number 12, number 2. You can test it with guess and check if you want. You know that there's only 2 numbers that multiply to 5, so that's 1 and 5, but there's a lot to deal with 12. I would not recommend doing that in number 3, because again, 6 has 4 factors, 12 has 6 factors. That's not a good look for testing. There's 12 different possible options and you don't want to multiply all those out. So we're going to go back to the AC method, which is again multiply 6 times 12, which is 72. So we're looking for factors of 72 that add to negative 17, so we know they'll both be negative. If we list them out, 1 and 72, 2 and 36, 3 and 24, 4 and 18, 6 and 12, we're getting closer. And finally, 8 and 9. So we know it needs to be negative 8 and negative 9, which means we're going to separate our middle term into negative 8y and negative 9y. Now you might be wondering, what order do you do it in? It doesn't matter, you end up with the same answer. It changes which thing is the common factor, but again, it's the same answer either way, so don't worry about the order. You can put them in either order. Be sure to take the negative with the 9. 6y squared minus 8y, they share a 2 and a y, and they leave 3y minus 4. Negative 9y squared, if the leading term and factor by grouping is negative, you take the negative. So they share a negative and a 3, leaving 3y minus 4. So my 2 factors are 2y minus 3 and 3y minus 4. And I will leave number 4 for you to do as well. We're going to do more on the next page, but in the next page we're bringing it all together. This includes common factors as well, and possibly not factorable equations. So not everything can be factored, so make sure that you are testing whether or not things can be factored. If you don't find anything that can factor, that is a possibility, so don't give up. So 3x squared plus 3x plus 12. First thing you always check for when factoring is a common factor. So if we're looking for a common factor here, they share a 3. That leaves us with x squared plus x plus 4. Okay, so now the question is, this is a 1 in front, so we don't need to multiply a by c because 1 times 4 is still 4. What are the factors of 4? It's either 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. Because neither of those add to 1, there's nothing left to factor out besides the greatest common factor. It is possible to have quadratics that don't factor. If you look up all the possible factors, some of them don't factor. Now that doesn't mean to put in every answer that it's not factorable. You have to be careful. Some of them are factored. You just sometimes need to look for the common factors or the possible factors and see which ones work. So just be careful there. So let's move on to number 2. What do 48, 74, and 10 share? They for sure share a 2, leaving 24b squared minus 37b minus 5. And 5 is prime, so unless these two both have 5s in it, that's as far as we can go. So I'm looking for factors of now 24 times negative 5, which is negative 120. So factors of negative 120 that add to negative 37. So the bigger one needs to be negative. So 1 and negative 120, 2 and negative 60, 3 and negative 40. I find the one that adds to negative 37. Which means, again, this breaks my middle term apart. The 2 remains on the outside. 24b squared, we have plus 3b minus 40b minus 5. Okay, so what do these two share? I'm going to leave my 2 out here. I'm going to put a brace, or a bracket, to separate it off. 24b squared and 3b share a 3b. They leave an 8b plus 1. Negative 40b and negative 5 share a negative 5. And again, they leave 8b plus 1. So my two factors from the inside are the 3b minus 5 and the 8b plus 1. That's shared. The 2 also stays. So it's not only 2 times 8b plus 1 times 3b minus 5. All of these multiplied together is the fully factored form. You can have a common factor and two factors of the quadratic. That is a possibility. Let's continue. We'll do two more. We'll go ahead and do we'll do 4 next. 12p squared plus 7pq minus 12q squared. Even though there are two variables here, we're still going to multiply 12 times negative 12, which is negative 144, and look for the numbers that add to 7. Again, since the middle term is positive, the larger term needs to be positive. So negative 1 and 144, negative 2 and 72, negative 3 and 48, negative 4 and 36, doesn't go into 5, negative 6, 24, I think 9, yeah, negative 9 and 16, I think 8 may have also been a factor, maybe 8 times 18 as well. But we get to the one we need, negative 9 and 16, and so I break my middle term into 7pq into a negative 9pq plus 16pq. It's 12p squared minus 9pq plus 16pq minus 12q squared. Whatever this variable is, or the combination of variables, that's always what's going to go with the numbers. So just keep that in mind. What do 12p squared and negative 9pq share? They share a p and 3. So 3p, they leave, 4p minus 3q. What do 16pq and negative 12q squared share? They share a q and a 4. So plus 4q, and they leave 4p minus 3q. So what are my factors? They have the common factor of 4p minus 3q and 3p plus 4q. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do number 5. Negative 15x squared y squared plus 7xy squared plus 4y squared. Okay, so common factor. You see two variables and both squared. It's a little concerning, but it could be manageable depending on what's happening. But they all have a y squared. So if we factor the y squared out, all of a sudden we have a much more manageable potential quadratic. So again, I need to multiply the negative 15 times 4 to get negative 60. Factors of negative 60 that add to 7. I need the bigger one to be positive. We've got negative 1 and 60, negative 2 and 30, negative 3 and 20. Looks like negative 4 and 15, negative 5 and 12. So we find the ones that are add to 7. And again, we break down our middle term. Negative 15x squared minus 5x plus 12x plus 4. Now there's another option some people like to do, which is to factor the negative out entirely. We can deal with that in a second. What do they share? Negative 15 and the 5x. They share really a negative 5 and an x, leaving 3x plus 1. What do 12x and 4 share? A 4, leaving a 3x plus 1. So my factors are, we've got y squared. Technically, we've got 3x plus 1. And we've got negative 5x plus 4. Now, how does it look if you take the negative out? Pulling the negative 1 out at the beginning would have pulled the negative y squared instead. The 3x plus 1 would have been the same. This would have changed. Instead of negative 5x plus 4, it would have been 5x minus 4. So some people like to pull the negative out so their leading term is positive. Go ahead and do that if you want. And that is the end of 5.3.